Hello, everyone. We should be getting started here in the Google Hangout. We're going to be talking about how to write great blog posts tonight. There we go. So, how to write great blog posts. And I guess I set the bar kind of high because I really believe that today, if you start blogging, you're going to really have to um, raise the bar a bit. You're going to have to write blog posts that really get people's attention, that are informative and useful. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do tonight, or at least give you some of my best pointers on. So I'm going to bring up my navigator here so I can just take you through each one of these slides. Okay, so the very first thing is that great blog posts have three characteristics to them. First of all, they're relevant. So if I'm reading your blog and let's say you run a personal finance blog, I want to make sure that everything on that blog is about personal finance. And if you write a blog post, I want to make sure that I'm not wasting my time by reading something that is off topic. So a great blog post is relevant. The second thing is that it's actionable. And I really think that this is what sets people apart. Okay, when they write a good blog post, is that the advice that they're giving in that blog post, or the point that they're making is always something that you can really hold on to and you could do something with, okay, or you can act upon. So that's what I mean by that the blog post is actionable. And the third thing is that it should be organized. Your blog post should have a structure to it so a person isn't getting lost. They can track with what you're talking about in your subject and they feel that it's well organized, it's concise, and it's something that they can understand. So that's what I think the third key characteristic of a great blog post is. Okay, so the next thing is that let's dig into each one of these areas. Okay, so and really what I would advise that you do is go ahead and if you have the training worksheet, I will go ahead and make notes on there because you're probably going to get ideas as we go through this. Or you can just open up another browser window and you can just go ahead and type in some notes to yourself. But I'm going to dive into each one of these characteristics so you have a very good understanding of what each of them are. Okay. So number one, being relevant means that you've talked to the right person. So you've done some thinking about exactly who you are talking to, who your audience is, and what they need to hear or what they want to learn more about. Okay, so relevant means talking to the right person. You also want to solve an important problem. And the more annoying, the more aggravating the problem is, the better off you'll be. Okay, so if your blog post is talking to an important problem that they have, it's going to do well. The third thing is that your blog post should be timely. Okay, and when I say timely, you don't want to talk about a problem that people had 3 years ago, or you don't want to talk about something that is so blue sky or futuristic that no one's having that problem now. So the best way to really find timely topics is just to keep your ears open in comment areas or in forums. I should say keep your eyes open. You're going to be just really checking for what are the questions that people are having now. And then you want to write blog posts that address that. I think another example of that was a couple of weeks back, or I should say at the last part of last year, about December 25th or 24th, around Christmas time, Beyonce came out with her latest album. Now, that was the news right now, and everyone was talking about how brilliant this marketing strategy was. And I felt like there was something there that was relevant to bloggers. So, understanding that Beyonce was in the news, I wrote a blog post about how she used marketing in the right way and how a blogger could use some of her tactics as well. So, that's a great example, I would say, of being timely. The next characteristic is being actionable. All right, so you want to show a person how to get clear results. You want to be clear, you want to be straight. You don't want to use a lot of jargon here. You really want a person to walk away from your blog post going, wow, that was really clear and I can use it. Okay, and I like to say that actionable advice is low on opinion but high on proof. So, what Obviously, you will have an opinion about your subject matter, but your entire post shouldn't be about your opinion. It should be about what they can do. And I like to say you should give them a lot of proof, meaning give them straightforward step by step results or step by step processes that they can use to see the proof for themselves or to get the benefit for themselves. So that's what I mean by being actionable. The next characteristic is organized. So I believe that every blog post you write should have a beginning, a middle, and an end, all right, to it. So you should start off stating what you're going to talk about, and then the middle part of your blog post, go about the business of solving that problem. And then at the end, you can apply that solution or encourage the reader to take what they have read and apply it for themselves. And the last piece is concise. And when I say concise, I don't mean short. All right. I don't believe that you should write 150 word posts and believe that that's being concise. That's being brief, but that's not being concise. What I mean is that you should write a post that quickly gets to the meat of the matter, okay, the meat of the subject. Explain your point of view and really understand that your reader doesn't have a lot of time and they're going to want to get the best stuff as quickly as possible. So that's what I mean by being concise. And really, when it comes to being concise, the best way to do that is to go back and edit your post and take out all the words or all the ideas that don't solve the central problem that motivated you to write the post in the beginning. Okay, so that is just a good way. Good editing usually leads to good, tight, concise posts, and your readers will appreciate that. As we're going through these slides, feel free to go ahead and put in any questions that you may have in your chat window, and I'm going to go back to those questions and I'll answer them through our Q&A session at the end of the presentation or at the end of the training. So feel free to go ahead and put whatever questions you might have into the chat window. That way you won't forget them when we get to the Q&A session. So the next thing is that I wanted to kind of walk you through what I'm calling my 40,000 visitor blog outline. And what I did to come up with that number is I went to all of the blog posts in which I used this problem solution application method I'm about to walk you through now. And I pulled out all those posts and I added up the visitors that they all received, and it came to be around 41,000 visitors who visited these specific posts in 2013. Okay, I had over 150,000 visitors in 2013. So this problem solution application template or outline did very well for me. Okay, so let me walk you through this. Number one, we have a problem. Okay, so you want to ask a problem question. That's my best way of kind of getting the reader really focused in on the post is I ask them a question about a potential problem they have. And then you have solution. And here you want to explain the principles or the rationale behind the solution you're offering. This is very important because a lot of times your readers wants to know that there's some real proof or some real evidence or some real rationale behind anything that you're offering up as a solution. So if you take the time to go through and really present your solution and explain your rationale, that will go a long way to cementing your credibility. The last thing is application. So you want to show your reader how to get started immediately. And I think one of the secret sauces of my success and even the success of the people at other blogs that you may read in my niche in the social media and marketing niche, you have your copy bloggers and your convince and converts and your social media examiners, is that you can read those posts and then apply what you read directly to your business. All right. And on the flip side, the posts are the blogs that seem to struggle are the ones that write posts that really don't have any real good application for the person reading it. Okay, so the person doesn't feel like they got anything out of the time they spent or invested with the blog. So you really want to have this application point. Okay, so if you're tracking with me so far, go ahead and put amen in your in your comment window or your chat window there, just to let me know that you're tracking and everything, you're following everything okay up to this point. All right, so let's move on to the next piece. So the next thing that I would like to kind of take you through, and I'm going to just change up my screen here so I can show you a different point of view, is Um, let me pull this up really quickly here. Is right here. Let me see if I can get that a little bit bigger for you. Okay, so we're going to go through each one of these specific areas. So I'm going to zoom my screen just a little bit for you. All right, and I'm going to take that down to 50% a bit. All right. So here I have one of my latest blog posts, and it was called 25 Ways to Get Noticed. And this blog post is done particularly well. And let me get off of here. And one of the things I think it did well is because it really has a very specific problem solution application format to it, which I'm going to take you through right now. Let me see if I can get that a little bit, because I know that on Google, um, Google Hangout, sometimes the screen can be a little small. So let me do it this way. There we go. That's even better. Okay. So here we have problem solution application. So in this post, 25 ways to get noticed, you'll see that I started off with, are you worried that your message is getting ignored? Is it tough to stand out in your niche? And that is the problem question. All right. And that captures attention because a lot of times people go, they come to your blog post, and when you ask them that question, whatever that might be for your particular niche, it immediately gives them the impression that you have understood their problem, and it helps build rapport with them. Okay, so are you worried that your message is getting ignored? And then I move into my solution. Okay, and what I like to do when I'm talking about a solution is to offer an anecdote or tell a story. Okay, so I can personally relate to what they're going through, or I talk about what I call an accepted fact. So, an example of this is that you have human nature working for you. We all love to find the next new thing. All right. So when I talk about capturing attention, I say, is your message getting ignored? And then I immediately provide this accepted fact, which is, we all love to find the next new thing. So the reader is going, wow, okay, I'm starting to understand where Stan is going with this thing. Maybe the best way to get noticed is that I'm going to have to provide the next new thing, or I'm going to have to find a way to be unique. Okay. And if you go through this paragraph, or these few paragraphs I have here and outlined in green, you'll see that I am making statements that we all can agree on. Okay. So you have human nature working for you. Everyone likes to know the next new thing. We spend hours every day looking for people who are unique. You just have to get on their radar screen. So here what I'm saying to you is that I am just really pounding in that point, that are reinforcing that point, that people are looking for unique things, and if you can get on their radar screen, you have a very good chance of getting noticed. And then I say, when I coach people how to get noticed, I work from a list of 25 questions. I'm sharing my list, hoping that it will give you a few ways to get the attention you deserve. So again, I start with that I am going through this process with other people. I'm showing other people how to get noticed. So that's a little bit of my proof there that I talked about before. And then I'm raising the expectations. I'm going to have something that's going to be usable, something that's actionable. Okay, so that's that piece about being actionable that we talked about before. The next thing we go into is the application. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can help your reader apply what you are talking about. Okay, so you can start off with a question and answer. Okay, and I do that in this post. So I talk about getting your vision noticed, and I say, what is your, or I ask, what is your world changing vision? This question and answer approach really pulls the person into your post and allows them to start thinking of good answers to these questions. So when they get through it, they get through your post, they actually have done a little bit of work. Okay, so when I say, what is your world changing vision? They have an answer for that. Who are you fighting for? They have an answer for that. And once they get through these 5 questions, they are really getting close to why their vision needs to get noticed and how they can go about doing that. Numbered steps work out great. So, step one, step two, step three, everyone kind of understands how to work through that process. So, when they see numbered steps, they immediately dive in. You can also arrange your solution or your action items from least to most important, or you could just provide a simple checklist for people to work through. Okay, so that's how I show, or this is how I offer an application, help people apply it to what they're working on. All right, does that make sense so far? All right, go ahead and put in your comment section, amen. All right, and make sure you provide your questions as well, because I'm really looking forward to answering some questions and diving in a little bit deeper on each one of these. So the next thing is that, how do you arrange each one of these elements? So here's my outline or my template. I start off with my headline. Okay, and for headlines, I don't try to get too clever. I like to tell people exactly what they're going to receive and the benefit they're going to get out of it. So think of your latest blog post and maybe put your latest blog post headline into the comment area, and I will help you kind of work on a good solid headline. So I start off with my headline, and then I talk about the problem. And I usually don't spend a lot of time on the problem. I just like to state it and move on. So 50 words or less is usually what I budget, okay, towards the problem. The next piece, the solution, I usually spend 3 times as much time on that, or 150 words on that, because I really want them to understand the principles or the evidence behind the solution I'm going to offer. And then you see that I spend the bulk of the post on the application. That's the 500 words. So if you've done the math here, you'll see that we're talking about 700 words, which is kind of the sweet spot. 700 words means that the normal person reading your blog post will spend about 2 minutes reading those 700 words. Okay, and it might take them a little bit longer or a little bit less, but I found that after trying 1,000 word post, 250 word posts, I found that sweet spot is usually in that 700 word area. Now, do not think that you have a bad blog post if you have 700 words, okay? Or if you have less than 700 words. I am not saying that successful blog posts have 700 words. I'm saying that for my readers, that is the sweet spot. And I found that that seems to be the sweet spot for a lot of other subjects. However, you're going to want to figure this out for yourself. Okay, so this is just a guideline for you. So now that we have our problem solution application, we have kind of an outline of how to do that, and I kind of broke down the template for you. What does the workflow look like for a successful blog post? Okay, so I'm going to share with you my workflow, and I have kind of refined this over a couple of years, just so I can make sure that I go through it the same way every time to make sure I get the exact same results every time. So I'm willing to offer this to you, and I'm willing to say I'm confident that if you follow a similar process, you will see success with it as well. So let's talk about my workflow. The first thing is that I actually write my post over 2 days. Now that doesn't mean that I'm spending, 48 hours writing posts. What I'm saying is that I split up my work session so I can focus on the right part when I have the most energy. Okay, so on day one is I really focus on the idea, and I pull my ideas from my editorial calendar. So my calendar for the next 3 months is already set. I already did that at the end of last year. Okay. And what I would encourage you to do is go and look at our editorial calendar training. I'll give you a link to that at the end of this session, and I'll send it to you via email, and you can see our last training that we did on editorial calendars to get a feel for how I put together editorial calendars. So I get my idea from my editorial calendar, and I sit down the day before I write my post, and I put together an outline using my problem solution application approach. That usually just takes 15 minutes, okay? And I try to put as much detail as I can in there, but I just want to get the gist of my idea. And then I also spend about 15 minutes just pulling in some links that I might use, or pulling in some anecdote, or thinking about my anecdote, or going to Wikipedia and doing a fact check on something that I might be offering. So I spend about 15 minutes on that. So 30 minutes on day one is spent outlining and researching, and pulling in any resources that I need. This is great because what it does is that I spend the rest of the time just kind of letting the idea kind of roll over in my mind. And I find that during that time, I start to kind of put together how that blog post is going to be written. Okay, because I already have an outline to work from, and I start to get comfortable with the subject. And on day two, I sit down and I write my draft, and I actually set my an egg timer to 45 minutes, and I start writing. And my goal is to get the outline that I had the day before, to flesh out that outline, fill in the blanks, if you will, for 45 minutes. Okay. And then at the end of that 45 minutes, I'm done. I finish up. Okay. And then I move into my edit phase. Now, I want to kind of caution you. I've been writing blog posts for 3 years, so I've gotten good at it. So I can write a blog post in 45 minutes. Don't be discouraged if it takes you an hour to write your blog post, or even 90 minutes. The point is that as you do more of these blog posts, you'll get faster. Okay, so don't beat yourself up about that. But I think it's important for you to go ahead and write that draft all in one sitting, no matter how long it takes you to do. Okay. Next, we're going to edit. I usually take about 15 minutes to edit. My proofreader and some of my readers believe I should take more time to edit. I understand that. I am not a grammar guy. I try to get my ideas out there as quickly as possible. But spend 15 minutes editing, also finding photos for your blog post, and working on your headings and bolding and setting up your links. That is your editing time. And then I publish. So that's my 2-day workflow process. It feels good. For me, this process allows me to put out about 4 posts every week. And I never really feel rushed, or I never feel that I don't have ideas. And I always feel like I put the appropriate amount of time into each blog post. So I believe that this workflow will work great for you as well. All right, so let me move out of that. I just want to check really quickly and make sure that everyone is still with me. Good, good. All right, so looks like everybody is there. Good. So the next thing is that we're at the point where I'm going to move into Q&A. All right, so I always try to make these Friday trainings as quick as possible. I only do one big idea, and then I go right into the Q&A session. So I'm going to switch back from the post here, my screen capture, turn that off. Good. So we're back.